Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Justina and here I like to make, create, and inspire fun art things with you through my DIYs. And boy do I have a huge DIY video for you that is all surrounding St. Patrick's DIYs that you can make with Dollar Tree items. These DIYs are a blast from the past, but I had to reshare them because they can help inspire you to make some of them this year for St. Patrick's Day. Now we do not go crazy over St. Patrick's Day, but we still like to decorate a little for it, and these DIYs are perfect for that. But before we get started, if you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, but don't forget to click on the bell notification so YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I really hope you enjoy, but don't forget to do all of the YouTubey things down below, which is like, comment, and share. Now, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it and let's art today. Now, I love shopping at Dollar Tree. However, there are some times you can find better deals at other stores, just like this 3-piece set that I found at Target. They were $3 each, and normally you have to buy these individually at Dollar Tree, and they're $1.25, so you do save just a little bit of money. I also found this 3-piece jar set at Target. That was only $3, and it comes with stuff inside that you can also use in additional crafts, and I thought that was such a great deal. So like I mentioned, each one of these jars comes with a little goodie inside. The first one were fake gold coins. This one was called Leprechaun dust, but it just looks like really thick glitter. And these Shamrocks glitter or table scatters as well. I thought those were really nice and I can use them for future projects. I also want to use this Dollar Tree enclosure that I purchased a while back and I used on a previous project that I'm recycling today. I also thought I was going to use a cauldron in this DIY, so I'm just showing you that I wanted to use that one from Michael's. Now I'm just going to remove all of these little wooden pieces from Target that I purchased, and I noticed that the little square one fit in the picture frame one, and I thought that was really cool, so that can be interchangeable if I wanted to later. But I am just using the gnome out of that pack. Now I wanted to see first if it fit inside of it and I can close it completely, and it did, and I thought that was awesome. Like I mentioned, I thought I was going to use this cauldron out of this pack, but I decided against it because it didn't really go with this little gnome guy, plus he was already holding a 4-leaf clover, so that was perfect enough for me. However, you can always paint this cauldron if you wanted to add it to your little gnome friend here. Now all I'm doing to attach him to the bottom piece is just adding 2 dots of hot glue to his feet, and then I wanted to add some of these gold coins from this jar that I purchased from Target, and all I'm doing with the gold coins is basically just laying it on the floor. I'm not adding any hot glue or anything like that so that I can also use them in a later project, and this DIY is done. This is how my little gnome friend turned out, and I think he is super adorable and super simple to make and only took minutes. Now you can always add this to a tier tray, a little shelf, or anywhere around your house for a little pop of St. Patrick's Day. The lid also comes off, so you can just leave it without a lid and have him on a little stand, and he's still adorable. Another quick and easy way to use these Target dollar spot little glassware is just to display them as is. There's really no work required for these little glass jars. However, if you want to make them your own, you can always relabel them and add a little bit more decor on top, but these will work perfect in a tier tray. I have been seeing a lot of these cauldrons with the lucky word on them in bigger stores as in Michael's, Target, and Walmart, but they are pretty pricey and they didn't match my decor style, so I was so happy when I found this wooden sign at Dollar Tree for $1.25, so I snatched one up. The first thing I wanted to do was try to remove the lucky word from the cauldron, but this one was glued down really nicely and I couldn't get it off without breaking it, so I just left it on there. Now, typically I like to paint my cauldrons using black, but I'm going to use two different types of green for this cauldron since it is St. Patrick's Day decor, and I am going in with a sloppy paint job. I want this to look a little weathered and little dirty per se, so I'm adding both of the greens and blending them together until I got the desired look that I'm going for. After I was done with that, I flipped it over and started painting the little coin section using my yellow in my folk art home decor chalk paint. Once that was filled, I then started dry brushing my Java brown paint all over the edges of the cauldron. Like I said, I really wanted this to look dirty and used and worn so that it had some dimension and a little bit of character. Once I was done with that, I did take some more of that Java paint and then splattered it all over my cauldron just to give it one more bit of detail. For the lucky word, I wanted to paint them in a rainbow color. Since I didn't have enough letters for each color of the rainbow, I opted out of green. Since the cauldron is green, it still makes it look like a rainbow. I am using my Posca paint markers, and I'm only using red, orange, yellow, blue, and purple. Each letter will have its own color, as you see here, and I'm just filling it in with my Posca paint markers because they're easier to handle with these small letters than using a paintbrush. While I am painting on my letters with the colors of the rainbow, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on the big red subscribe button down below, but make sure to click on the bell notification so that YouTube can always notify you when I upload a new video. Plus, I would love for you to be part of my virtual art family. Now it's time to add the gold coins on top of this cauldron. Now they do provide a little divot on the top to show you where the coins should go, but these coins were a little bit bigger. Nonetheless, they still fit in the spots pretty nicely, and I try to do my best. Now you can see some of the paint showing through, which is totally fine because I did paint that area yellow, so it's not that bad. However, if it does bother you, you can always add more coins on top so you won't be able to see the paint showing through. Speaking about coins, if you'd like to help support my page a little bit more, I would love for you to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. The link is down in the description box below. Over there, you'll have first look at sneak peeks, behind the scenes photos, and additional communication with me on upcoming videos. Plus, you are helping this community grow by supporting me to make better content for you. I wanted to add a little bit more detail, so I'm taking a black Posca paint marker and outlining the outer edges of the cauldron. For the last little bit of details that I wanted to add to this cauldron is a 3-leaf clover. I'm using Dollar Tree's foam hearts from their Valentine's Day collection, taking a green Posca paint marker and painting over it. Once that had time to dry, it is now time to add it right onto the cauldron on top of my lucky word, and I'm just using hot glue to attach them on to one another. Then I just draw in a stem, and that completes this DIY. You can always add a little string if you want to hang up your sign, but I opted out of it and I just placed it onto my bookshelf. I feel like each year Crafter Square section at Dollar Tree has been really stepping it up. I found these mini burlap shaped flags in there and I thought they were pretty decent size, so I'm not really sure why they call them mini. However, I thought this would be a great addition to my St. Patrick's Day DIYs, and I'm just removing it from the packaging and laying it all over my table so I have a good feel on how big and how much space I am working with. This banner does have 6 flags on it, and I was trying to get a feel of what I really wanted to do with it. I had some of these 3-leaf clovers still left over from a previous project that I want to use with this flag. I thought they would look good on top of the burlap. It gives that green such a pop. And I used 2 of the gold ones. Another addition to this DIY is using some old book pages that I have on hand. Now, I really wanted to give this banner a really antique old look, so to do so, I'm just tracing out the areas that I want my book pages to go into. Then I started cutting it out where I trace. Now, I thought they were too sharp, so then I started ripping off the edges of the book page so to give it more of that antique look, and then I crumbled it into my hands. Then I'm going to uncrumble it, and it gives it such an old look. Now, it was still too white for my liking, so to fix that, I wanted to give it an aged look. So I took some Java paint in my folk art home decor chalk paint and added a bunch of water to it just to give it a watered down effect, and then I just added it onto my book pages. Then I lightly dry brush some sheepskin right on top of that. Now I noticed that cutting all the book pages was a little bit useless, so I just started painting on all of the Java paint, and then I cut it down to size, and I continue this with all of my pages. Now, to be honest, I didn't really wait for my pages to dry completely before adding it to my banner. I'm using my hot glue gun, and for this it really worked well. However, if you want to wait for your pages to dry completely, you can always use a Mod Podge for this step. To speed up this process just a little bit more, I am just going to show you how I decorated one of these flags. Now, each flag will have a different 3-leaf clover on there, but it's still the same technique. I am gluing down the little book page on first, and then I'm adding a 3-leaf clover right on top of that, still using my hot glue gun to attach it down. Once that was down, I thought the banner was still a little bit plain, so then I took a black Posca paint marker and I started drawing on the outer edges with little dashes, and I continue this with all of my banner, and that completes this DIY. I want to make a St. Patrick's Day wreath for my front door. I am using Dollar Tree's 14-inch wire wreath form and some of this green tulle. Now, I've had this green tulle for many years, but I do know that Dollar Tree carries something similar, but just a little bit shorter. I am cutting my tulle down into these really long strips. They're about 2 to 3 inches wide, but I suggest making them a little bit wider, maybe even 4 to 5 inches wide, because it will cover more of the wreath form. After I got a couple of them cut out, I will fold the tulle in half and then cut that down in half. After I have a little pile to the side, I did do the exact same thing using my orange tulle. Once again, I've had this tulle on hand for quite some time, but Dollar Tree does carry something similar. I will cut it into strips, then fold the strips in half, and then cut those down to size as well. After I have everything piled out to my liking, it is now time to add the tulle to my wreath form. After I have everything ready, I took some of the green strips, folded it in half, and made a little loop at the top. After I made the loop at the top, I fed the tails of the loop in the middle of the loop and pulled it through to create a little knot on the edge of the wreath form, as you see here. I hope that helps. I know it's a little bit confusing. This took me a little while to get the hang of it, and this does take quite some time, so I suggest putting on some music or a nice movie to watch while you're doing it. Here's how it looks after I made a little section completely full, and then I will continue filling it until it is completely full all around the edges. This is what my wreath form looks like after I was completely done with my green tulle, and now I'm doing the same exact thing using my orange tulle, but on the next section of the wreath form, and then I will continue that until it is completely full. Now that it is completely full, I realized it was a little bit too long and I couldn't see the green tulle behind it. So all I'm doing here, I know you can't really see it, is taking a sharp pair of scissors and cutting down the orange tulle tool until my liking. Now at first I cut it down way too short, so I do go back and fix that. However, I will continue cutting it until I get everything nice and even. Once I was done, I then went on to the next section. So I did skip a bar and then started filling up the wreath form once again using my green tool. Here's how my wreath looks after everything was completely full. Now I did leave a little section over to the side, as you see, blank, because I am going to fill that later. And as you see where I was pointing at, I did skip a section of the wreath form because I am going to fill that up using Crafter Squares fabric. As you see here from the title, this is what I'm using on all of my DIYs today. Now I did cut down little strips like I did before, but instead of making a little loop like I did with the other ones, I'm just tying a little knot and then pulling it back out so that all you see are the little ends in this section. Now I don't make it as tight as the tool areas, but I do put about 4 in each one of those sections on the wreath form until it was completely done to my liking. This is what the wreath looks like after I was completely done, and I absolutely love it. Now to hide that little hole right there, I have a Dollar Tree's wooden heart that I just painted completely white and then added black stripes on top of it, and I'm just using hot glue to adhere it down to the wreath form. And then on top of that, I'm using this Happy St. Patrick's Day sign that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm using my hot glue to place it right on top of the heart, and that completes this DIY. For my next DIY, I wanted to make a 3-leaf clover sign, and I purchased this from Dollar Tree, and I think I purchased it last year and still had it on hand. Now I was going to cut off the little string that comes at the top, but I decided to keep it because I will use it later. After I pushed it through the holes, I am then taking my spatula and I'm going to put it underneath those little hearts on the sign itself. Now this does take a little patience, and if you have a heating gun, I'm pretty sure heating up the little wooden area would make this go a little faster. I couldn't find mine. I think it's still packed up, but I pried it up with my spatula and I continued this until all 3 hearts were off the sign. I did rip one of the hearts, but not to worry, I do cover it later so you won't be able to tell. Now I am going to turn around that 3-leaf clover because there was still some glue left over on the front of it. So now the back is my new front. I will then paint it using my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color Irish green. I really love this color. It's so fun and so bright. I will place that to the side until it dries completely. As that is drying, I will now work on the hearts, and I am going to cover it using my Crafter Squares fabric in this checkered pattern that I absolutely love. I'm placing the hearts onto the fabric so I know exactly where to cut the fabric so that it is nice and even and there's not that much waste. I did only have to use 1 roll of this Crafter Square fabric for all 4 DIYs, and I still have some left over for other projects in the future. To attach the fabric onto the wooden hearts, I'm just using my Mod Podge. Now mine is satin, but I'm pretty sure you can use whichever Mod Podge that you have on hand to attach the fabric down to the wooden hearts. After I got a nice thick layer, I pushed the heart into the fabric and pull the fabric just a little so that I could get most of the air bubbles out. Once again, I'm rubbing it all the way down so that it can attach to the wooden heart. Add another layer of Mod Podge right on top of the fabric so everything is sealed nicely. After that had time to completely dry, I then took a pair of scissors and cut out the fabric as close as I can to the wooden heart. Now you can also use an X-Acto knife if you need to, so you can get as close as you can, but I used my pair of scissors. It worked just fine. Now that everything had time to completely dry and is cut out, I am going to attach everything back together. I was just showing you how the wood grain came through the paint and I absolutely loved how it looked. Now I am attaching the hearts back onto the 3-leaf clover just using some hot glue and my Gorilla Glue sticks. Now, I thought my sign was a little bit plain, so I went through some of my crafting stash and I have this welcome sign. Once again, I purchased that from Dollar Tree as well. And I wanted to use these metal flakes that I purchased from Dollar Tree. It's in their plus section. It is $3. And I wasn't really too sure on how to use this and I didn't really look up any videos on how to. So I just took a glue stick and I added it to the galvanized word, starting with the letter E, and I placed a lot of glue on top. Next, I will then add some flakes right on top of the glue and then press down so that the flakes can adhere to the letter. Then I will take a paintbrush and remove some of the excess metal flakes from the outer edges. I did also use my finger to get really close to the edges so that it has a smooth finish. Now, like I said, I wasn't too sure on how to use this, so I also did use some Mod Podge on the M to see if maybe it will work a little better or adhere down nicely than the glue stick. So that's what I'm doing here. I add a little bit of Mod Podge and then I'm adding those golden flakes right on top, pushing it down so that it can adhere to the glue. Once again, I will then take my paintbrush and remove some of the excess, also pulling some of the excess off using my finger. Ultimately, I like the glue stick method better, so that's what I'm doing. I will completely cover the welcome sign. Now, as I was using the paintbrush to remove some of the excess, I noticed some of it was still coming off, but I kind of like that look, so I stayed with it. After that had a little bit of time to dry, I want to attach it to the middle of my sign, and I'm just using my hot glue gun and my Gorilla Glue sticks, adding it to the back of it and then pressing it down onto the sign. Now, I also wanted to add that little string right back onto the top of it, but I wanted to add some of these green beads to it, so I added 5. I added 3 big ones and 2 smaller ones, added it back into the holes, and that completes this DIY. Moving right into our next DIY, I picked up one of these decor packages of 8 of their 3-leaf clovers. They have 2 different patterns and 4 of each one of the patterns, which I thought were really cute. I am going to use 2 of each pattern to make my own freestanding sign. Once again, I am using Crafter Square fabric in this checkered pattern that I really love. I am going to cut out little squares, once again trying to get as close as I can to the pattern so I don't waste any, and I will do that for all 4 of those 3-leaf clovers. Now, to attach the fabric, I am using the back of those 3-leaf clovers that I had from the package, and I am using some Mod Podge. Now, my Mod Podge is satin. I'm pretty sure any Mod Podge that you have on hand would work perfectly for this project. Now, I'm just pushing down firmly as I place the fabric right on top of the 3-leaf clover so that all the air bubbles are out, and then I will add another layer right on top of that so it can seal it down to the 3-leaf clover. To help my sign stand up, I am using a painter stick from Lowe's. I believe I bought it, and I am painting it with my Irish green color in my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint. After my 3-leaf clovers were completely dry, I am taking a pair of scissors and I'm cutting off the excess fabric all around the edges, trying to get as close as the 3-leaf clover as I can. Once again, you can use an X-Acto knife if you feel more comfortable that way. After I was done cutting them out, it was now time to attach them down to the painter stick that I painted earlier as their stand. Now I'm just using my hot glue gun once again with a Gorilla Glue stick to hold everything going down nicely, and I'm gluing part of the stem and one of the petals to the painter's stick. I am trying to go in a pattern where I use the pattern it came with and then the fabric pattern side back and forth. So I have a green one, then the fabric, then the white one, and then the fabric. Once again, I'm attaching everything using my hot glue gun. So I wanted to add a word onto the front of these 3-leaf clovers, so I took some poster stickers and put them down onto some poster paper and then cut them down so that I can spell luck. Now I was going to spell out lucky, but I decided just to do luck since I wanted to keep this a little bit shorter, and then I'm just attaching them using my hot glue once again down onto the 3-leaf clovers. The very last thing for this sign I wanted to do was add little feet to the bottom of it. I have some of these orange beads in my crafter stash and I'm hot gluing it to the bottom of the painter stick. The best part about this sign is that it's double-sided, so you will see here shortly, but that completes this DIY. I want to make over this little wooden cutout of a gnome that I purchased from Dollar Tree. Now Dollar Tree has been really stepping it up with their wooden cutouts. They have so many different and new designs this year that I absolutely love and can't wait to use them. But for this DIY, I am using the same fabric that I've used throughout the whole video. And once again, I'm using my Mod Podge method. I'm adding a layer of Mod Podge onto the wooden piece. Then I will add on my fabric, push out any air bubbles, and then add another layer of Mod Podge to seal it. I then cut as closely as I can after it has time to completely dry so that it has the shape of the hat as you see here. Now it's time to paint my little gnome friend here so that we can give him a little bit of character. I first start off with his shoes. I'm going in with my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Irish Green. I really love this color and I think it's perfect for St. Patrick's Day DIYs. Next, I'm going in with my Castle color in the same Folk Art Home Decor chalk paints, and I'm adding it all over his beard. To give it more of a hair-like texture, I'm using some Java paint, which is like a brown color, and I'm adding it right on top of the wet paint to create those strokes so it looks like hair. And then on top of that, I'm adding some sheepskin color just to highlight some of the hairs. I watered down some brown paint and added it to his nose so it acts more like a stain rather than paint. For the gnome, I wanted to give him some gloves, so I took a green Posca paint marker and added a little glove-like hands to the top of his beard. Then I glued on a little coin from Dollar Tree, and now I'm adding 3 little foam hearts that I painted green onto his hat. I will then take my green Posca paint marker to add the stem to the little 3-leaf clover. The next thing I like to do is outline everything in my black Posca paint marker. I first started outlining the hat, and then I do add another line on top of the brim just so that it has dimension. I do fill that in with black paint, and then I finish outlining the rest of the gnome. Then after that, I do add a white Posca paint marker to add the highlights. Once that had time to completely dry and finish, I then added one of these Jenga blocks from Dollar Tree to the back of it to act like a stand, and that completes this DIY. I want to make over this little house that I purchased from the Dollar Tree. I originally used it for a gingerbread house during the Christmas season. I just sanded it down so that I can repurpose it for St. Patrick's Day. I want to give it a nice fresh look, so I'm going to give it a nice thick layer of my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color sheepskin. After that was completely dry, I wanted to give this house some stripes and I wanted them to be green, so I'm using my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color Irish green. So to create my stripes, I am using masking tape once again from Dollar Tree, and I'm just laying it down onto the house using a little piece of tape to be my little spacer in between each layer so that they are even as possible and hopefully straight. Then I'm just adding the paint right on the places that aren't taped down, and I give it about 2 coats of that paint. After the paint was completely dried, I just removed the tape, and then I wanted to give it a nice sanding down to give it more of a rustic look, so that's what I'm doing here, just scuffing up the edges and the front of the house. Next, I'm adding these poster stickers that say 17 for the date of St. Patrick's Day, and then on the side of it I was going to put March using these sticker letters from Dollar Tree. After I was done, I noticed that I didn't really like it, so I wanted to start all over again, but this is how it looks if I was to keep it just how it is. So to remedy that, I just added more of that Irish color green right on top of the stripes, making a nice thin layer of that paint just so I have a fresh start. After that part was completely dry, I wanted to add some details using these window clings from Dollar Tree. I love picking out these window clings because there's so much you can do with them. I picked out this little gnome friend right here, and to adhere him down to the house, I'm just using some Mod Podge on the back of it, and then I will add more Mod Podge on the top of it so that it was nice and sealed. To finish off this little house, I added the same poster numbers that I did before, the number 17 right above my little gnome friend. Then I added some 3-leaf clovers from the same window cling packed, added a layer of Mod Podge to seal everything, and that completes this DIY. For this DIY, I wanted to use the same house, but only the inside of the house for another St. Patty's Day decor piece. I also wanted to use some of these pots from Dollar Tree. They usually take them out during St. Patrick's Day season, and you get 5 in a pack, which is a great deal because you can do so much with these little pots here. Now, the pot didn't fit exactly flush up against the house, so I had to cut it down the center using just a pair of scissors. They are a little bit thick on the bottom, so you might have to use a little pressure, but nonetheless I did get to cut it straight in half. Here are the 2 halves after I cut them. Now I only need 1/2 of the cauldron, and I did think I was going to use a handle, but then I decided against it, and as you see here, it fits flush up against the house. Before I add the cauldron in, I did want to add some of this green moss that I purchased from Dollar Tree on the bottom of the house because I wanted my little cauldron to look like it was in the middle of a forest. I then added some hot glue to the outer edges of the cauldron and then pressed it firmly up against the house, and then I continue adding some moss on the bottom of it. Next, I took some Dollar Tree golden ribbon and I placed it in the center of the cauldron. I thought this could act as little coins in the background, but then I end up covering it using Dollar Tree's bigger coins in their St. Patrick's Day collection. I then started hot gluing all of the coins up in the middle of the cauldron and all around that gold ribbon that I placed, and a couple around the pot, and that completes this DIY. For my next DIY, I wanted to make over this gnome that I purchased from Dollar Tree. It was in their Valentine's Day collection, but I want to turn it into a little St. Patrick's Day gnome. Now, comment below if you remember what we named this little fella here. Extra brownie points if you remember. Now, I wanted to make him over, first going in with my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color Irish green. I will start painting on that. I do start off with his hat and his clothing, and I do give it about 2 coats. As I'm painting my little gnome friend here, I do have some news I want to share with you. As many of you may already know, I do have a Patreon page, which the link will be down in the description box below, where you receive all types of goodies, whether it be digital, Happy Mail, or everything in between. And this month I do want to share that I am sending off my monthly wallpaper postcard and also a painting I did earlier this month that I am super excited to share with you. It is a 4x6 print of my painting, but each one of you will get both and a handwritten note telling you how much I appreciate all of your support throughout this YouTube journey, and I am super excited to see what else holds in the future. But once again, if you would like to sign up for Patreon, all of the links will be down in the description box below. I really hope to see you there. Once that had time to dry, I am going in with my Posca paint marker in the color dark green, and I'm adding on the details. Now, this ceramic had little hearts all around the hat, and I'm making them into 3-leaf clovers by adding little hearts onto the side and adding a stem. Then I will just color them in, and I will continue this process until his whole hat is covered in these 3-leaf clovers. After I was done with the 3-leaf clovers on his hat, I took that same Posca paint marker and started coloring in the bigger heart that he is holding on to, and then I used the same Posca paint marker in that same dark green and start filling in his shoes as well. Once I was done with that, I took a lighter Posca paint marker in green and filled in the little heart in the center. Then I took a gold Posca paint marker and started outlining the 3-leaf clovers that I made onto his hat, and then use it to add little details onto the heart and fill in the gloves of my gnome. To finish up this gnome, I wanted to add one more detail, which is a little pom-pom to place on the tip of his hat, and he is completed. For my next DIY, I wanted to make little St. Patrick's Day words using these alpha tiles that I purchased, I believe, from Dollar General. They were only a couple dollars, and you get all of these pieces. They are like Scrabble pieces, so you can make a bunch of words using these tiles. I flip them all over to find all of the letters that I need, and I'm going to spell out lucky for my first word, and then for my second word, I'm going to spell out St. Patrick's Day. After I have all of my words that I'm going to use, I am going to now attach them using my hot glue gun. Now, I just add a nice generous amount on the side of the letters and then press the next letter right into the glue, pressing down firmly and making sure not to glue it onto the table. And then I will continue this process with the rest of the letters. After I had my word completed, they do stand up on their own, but they're pretty flimsy and they fall easily. So I am using my little cubes here that I purchased from Dollar Tree. Once again, I'm using my hot glue to attach it to the back of the word. I continue this process with the second word, and that completes this DIY. Another easy DIY for St. Patty's Day is to make over the gnomes that they carry every year at Dollar Tree. They usually come a little bit beat up and the paint job is not always that great, at least at my Dollar Tree. However, they are the perfect size for a tier tray and they come in different positions. They're either sitting down or standing up, and I just think they're so adorable. So I want to recreate these by giving them a fresh coat of paint. These two gnomes are going to be pretty similar. They're going to be little brothers, and I don't believe that I have named these two. So if you want to leave me a comment down below and help me give these little guys a name, I would deeply appreciate it. Right now, I'm just going in with a light brown color and painting on their skin tone. For my yellow shirt gnome friend here, I wanted to paint his pants and his hat using my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color Irish green. I really love this green, especially around springtime and for St. Patrick's Day. For this gnome, I went in with a different green color, still in my folk art home decor chalk paint, and I'm just painting his hat in this color. To make the project go a little faster for myself, I do go back and forth with each gnome, painting one, and then once that was done, I then go on to the next gnome and paint that as well. Now, as you see here, I really like the yellow shirt on this gnome, so I just gave it a nice fresh coat using my yellow in my folk art home decor chalk paint. Now with this gnome, I did not like his blue shirt, so I am going over it with my castle color, same in my folk art home decor chalk paint, and giving it a nice thick coat. Now I do want to mention all of the original videos will be linked down in the description box below. If you want to see all of these DIYs and more details, don't forget to check out down there. If you want to see more pictures and more little snippets of DIYs that I do, don't forget to check out my other social medias. All those links are down there as well. So as you just saw, I did give each gnome a fresh coat of white paint on their beards and their hair. And lastly, all I have to do is paint a fresh coat of black paint on the boots, and that completes this DIY. For a really simple and easy DIY, pick up 2 of these terracotta pots from Dollar Tree. Actually, 2 come in 1 pack. You only need 1 pack of them, which I think is a great steal for $1.25. And as you see here, I'm just giving it a nice thick coat of white acrylic paint. After that was nice and dry, I then took a black Posca paint marker and started drawing lines on the side of the pot. And then I marked little X's on where I want to fill in those lines so that I have a black and white stripe pot. Then I just took some regular black acrylic paint and painted over all of the X's that I placed inside of those lines, so we have a nice black and white stripe pot. I then took that same black Posca paint marker after I was done and then added little dashes onto the side because I thought it was still just a little flat and I wanted to give it a little bit more detail. Did sit that to the side so that it can dry completely, and then I wanted to add a little bit detail for this. Since this is St. Patty's Day, I found this St. Patty's Day tinsel hat at Dollar Tree, and I'm just sprucing it up by adding a little bit of coins to the side and a 3-leaf clover, and then I placed that right on top of the pot, and that completes this DIY. For my next DIY, I am going to make a nice St. Patrick's Day sign. I have 2 signs from Dollar Tree. One is from their fall collection and the other one is from their Halloween collection. I am just using the cauldron in the center of that sign, and then I'm using the square sign as the base of my sign. I wanted to cover it using this glittery rainbow paper that I had in my collection, and I'm just going to cut it down to size and glue it into place. So since I am just using the cauldron out of this sign, I'm taking my box cutter and giving it a nice decent amount of pressure and cutting around the outer rim of the frame that it's in, and then flipping it back and forth until it pops out. Then I took a pair of scissors and cut off the excess wood that was on the top. Now I wanted to paint my cauldron but also give it another form of texture on top to hide that trick or treat sign, so I picked up another black piece of texture scrapbooking paper that I had in my crafting stash. I traced out the cauldron and then cut it down to size. After everything was painted and cut it out, I then took a Gorilla Glue stick and added it to the back of the scrapbooking paper so that it can attach down to the wooden piece. I did also add a little bit of hot glue to the outer edges so that everything is attached down nicely. To give my sign a little bit more bling, I'm adding this ribbon onto the outer edges and then attaching it using my hot glue gun. Then I will attach my cauldron to the middle of the sign using my hot glue gun as well. I then added some gold coins that I purchased from Dollar Tree all on the top edge of my cauldron. I really wanted this to look like it was overflowing with coins and that it was really full. I did want to add some wordage to my sign, so to remedy that, I'm using this other sign from Dollar Tree that has a whole bunch of words on it, and I'm using my box cutter to cut it out. I am using the ruler just to help me make a straight line, and then I will flip it around and pop it out. Then after I got the words that I wanted, I am going to attach them to my sign using my hot glue gun. I did add 3 more coins to the bottom of my sign and then took a white Posca paint marker and outlined the cauldron just to give it a little bit of a pop, and that completes this DIY. For my next DIY, it is another sign. I'm going to use this 11 by 14 picture frame and this wooden truck. This DIY was really popular back in the day. I know a lot of you like these wooden trucks in your home decor, so I wanted to add it. I personally do not decorate with these wooden trucks, but this was really a fun DIY that I did. I am painting this truck using my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color Irish green. I then took my Java brown chalk paint and started painting above the tires and the bed of the truck, and then I started taking a paper towel and removing the excess so that it can be more of a stain rather than a paint. I then go in with black acrylic paint and paint in both of the tires. I did set that to the side to dry completely, and while that is drying, I will work on my picture frame. I did take out the glass and set that to the side because I won't be using it for this DIY. I took some hot glue and started gluing down the piece of paper that comes with the frame, but on the white side. Next, I'm taking this rainbow duct tape that I purchased from Michael's, and I'm placing it down all on the back side of the frame so that that can be my rainbow backing for this DIY. After that was completed and my truck was completely dry, I started adding some gold coins to the rims of my truck. Then I will hot glue my truck down into place. To decorate my sign even more, I am using Dollar Tree's foam 3-leaf clovers and coins for the back of my truck. I am attaching them using my hot glue gun, and I'm just putting them sporadically in the bed of the truck. Friends, if you are enjoying today's video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help out my channel, and it lets me know that you enjoy my DIYs. I did want to add some wordage to my sign, so I took another word from that other sign from Dollar Tree and hot glued it diagonally in the corner. And as you see here, I did add a cauldron to the top of my little pile here and added a little bit of stitching all over my truck, and that completes this DIY. To make this really cute sign, I'm going to use a leftover piece that I had on hand from a Dollar Tree sign, flip it over and paint it using my folk art home decor chalk paint in the color sheepskin. After that had time to completely dry, I am just taking a regular pencil and sketching in a 3-leaf clover to the best of my ability. I did have to go over it a couple of times just to get the look I am going for and wanted it to be in the center of this little square sign. Once I was done with that, I took some of Dollar Tree's floral moss once again and started adding it to my sign. Now I did add a little bit of hot glue, place the moss right on top of that hot glue, and then remove the excess. Once I have a nice pile down, I then took a pair of scissors and started cutting it down into the shape of the 3-leaf clover, getting as close as I can down to the board, but making sure not to go too far down so you can see the white showing through. I will continue this until the whole 3-leaf clover is full. To finish up my sign, I'm just adding a gold coin, once again from Dollar Tree, and hot gluing it to the center of my 3-leaf clover. I will then take a green Posca paint marker and add my little dashes to the outer rim of the sign, and that completes this DIY. Once again, here is a quick overview of all the DIYs that were in today's videos. Now, if you would like to see a more detailed version of the original videos, they will be linked down in the description box below. Remember, if you are new here, I hope you stick around by hitting that big red subscribe button down below, but make sure to click on the bell notification so that YouTube can always notify you when I upload a new video. Plus, I would love for you to be part of my virtual art family. You enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. It really does help out my channel. Remember, friends, I do have a Patreon page. Here are this month's perks. I really hope that you are able to sign up. Remember, you can always sign up for free and then pick a membership later on. If you would like to help support my page, don't forget to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. That link is down in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.